You are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And so if you're around 5 millionaires, you're soon to be the 6th. If you're around 5 obese video game players, you're soon to be the 6th. And so I do take the connection with my friends and employees and team members quite seriously. And I always, for me personally, because I'm a strong, whatever, A-type, whatever person, I need to be around what I call contenders. And so those are people that have boundaries and hold them, and then also respect my boundaries.
Hello and welcome to the Stroke It podcast. I'm Jenny Townsend, your host. Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited for you to be inspired to live your life fully, to take ownership of your time, your schedule, and your life, but most importantly, learn and grow and develop personally and professionally. Myself and others are going to share life lessons that we've learned through leadership, through heartache, through pain, through struggles, and we'll be sharing some success stories with you as well. Super eager for you to dive in, learn, and grow. And once again, just take ownership of your life today. Hello, and welcome to the Stroke It podcast. Jenny Townsend, your host. I am so excited about today's conversation. Being a business owner and a business owner that deals with children and parents, Matthew Finlin is going to be providing some great tools, resources, tips, and tricks as well. He is the founder and CEO of Real Life Skills Academy, an online academy designed to empower both teenagers and parents with real life skills we were not taught in the traditional education system. With his philosophy of the 5 pillars of human potential, he helps families, parents, and teens avoid the 3 Ds of deaths, which is debt, divorce, and disease. Matthew, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited for our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Me as well.
You're welcome. Okay, so before we get started with the meats and bones of the conversation of today's podcast, I really would love for you to share with our listeners where you live, what season of life you're in, and really what inspired you to be on today's podcast.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, I have recently moved to Peru. I moved with my excellent partner and our dog down to Peru for a variety of political, economical, cultural reasons, which are probably pretty obvious if you just sit back and have a look at it. Currently, I have been doubling down on this youth education platform, and what I'm really excited about is our free platform for parents. As I was teaching teens a couple years ago, last year, 2 years ago, I kept coming up to this roadblock, which as I was teaching the teens these real life skills, but then their parents didn't have them. I train sales teams, and salespeople do 0% of what you say and 50% of what you do. And teens are a lot like that too. So I'm teaching the teens to regulate, and then mom gets cut off in traffic and she loses her cool. And so having this free online community, I used to charge upwards of, I still do for one-on-one containers. I'll charge between $6,000 to $12,000 for a container, but now all of that info is going to be for free on the online platform to help parents be able to homeschool their kids properly. And so, moved to Peru, a small town boy from Canada. I lived in Hong Kong for 3 years, did some pretty big business up there. I've been training sales teams for well over a decade now. And you mentioned the 5 pillars. So my philosophy is that humans have 5 pillars of potential to work on. They have a financial pillar, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And I pretty quickly learned that for all of your relationships, if you're just focusing on one of those, it kind of unravels. And so, so I've spent basically the past 12 years pretty obsessed with a spectrum of neuroscience, psychology, philosophy, and spirituality. I believe it's all in the same spectrum. And so in doing that, finding what I would call like remarkable crossovers from science and spirituality, where like we're uncovering things in neuroscience that they've been talking about in the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita for thousands and thousands of years. And I call it applicable spirituality, basically. And so, so that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm super excited to break down the 5 pillars. I think that we could all benefit from learning about that and how those all work in tandem together. Um, Obviously, as I said earlier, I work with a lot of children and parents, and a lot of the things that are happening, whether it's the bullying in schools or the lack of self-confidence or the lack of desire or passion, I really think a lot of it stems from the parents as well, because number one, they don't have a hobby or something they're passionate about, or their lack of confidence is now spilling onto their children too. And then just the unhappiness. So I'm excited to dive into all of that. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say based on your experience and the research. I always love to start off with the 5 love languages. I know they've been impactful in my life, whether it's in the workplace or it's in my personal relationships as well. How familiar are you with the 5 love languages?
Very familiar. Yeah.
Are you using that in your work or something similar to that?
It's interesting. I own a partial owner of a retreat center here in Peru, and we actually just started talking about that literally 2 or 3 days ago. I would say, well, yes, in my relationships, and then for business, I've been like kind of playing with like the 5 love languages of business, which is like a different set of love languages. But big time in my emotional romantic relationship, and then I guess you could say it's been creeping into to some of my business ones.
Yeah. Well, there actually is a book for the workplace, Love Languages for
Hmm.
the Workplace.
Oh,
And I would highly recommend that for anybody that has a business, because I feel that it's been really impactful for us knowing the different love languages and how that plays a role for acknowledging people, showing appreciation, praising them. I've used a couple examples with having 2 team members in the past with like $20. One would want quality time going to lunch versus $20 as a gift for their future goals as well. So I would highly recommend anyone doing that. You had indicated that your love language is acts of service. So I would love for you to share with our listeners what that means to you, so that if they have someone in their life that their love language, like their spouse's love language, they would understand that a little bit.
okay. Well, I mean, first and foremost, as it is with the love languages, I just notice the like yay in my body comparatively to when when my partner comes and holds my hand, it's nice. But when I like come home and like the kitchen is clean or something, it's like, yeah, like I'm blessed. And so like making a little lunch for me. It's just like, oh, I'm working, 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 working. Food comes in. I'm like, thank you, thank you. Just so that's kind of the first one for me is I just really notice that. Um,
And those are great examples, I think, especially with people that are working from home or people that are going out and coming home, like that acts of service. Like a lot of times we complain about our partner that like the other partner just doesn't do those things. Why do I have to ask for it constantly? And if they're constantly asking for it, that's because it means something to them. So, whether it's a simple chore of taking out the trash or making lunch, that can make a big impact in someone's life if that's something that they truly, truly care about. So I love that your partner's doing that. My husband loves when I make an appetizer or make lunch and things like that, or if I unload the dishwasher, which is something I very rarely do. Like, I don't even know how to turn the darn thing on. And even though he showed me like tons of times, it just doesn't click. I mean, it could be because I don't want to do it, but at the same time, when I do unload the dishwasher, it's like, I'm like taking something off his to-do list, which is so great, especially in a partnership and a marriage. So,
yeah.
thanks for sharing that. So, okay, let's get right into talking about yourself. Please share with us how important it is to take care of ourselves and how that impacts the rest of our relationships and the way that we live our lives.
Okay, excellent. Well, this is something that has certainly been coming up a lot for me lately. I'm gonna get a little sciencey, just a little bit for a little bit. I well, first and foremost, if you're not taking care of your own body and your own mind, then you're going to be I almost said broken, but like you're gonna need some tending to. And it's pretty straightforward. It's difficult, but it's not complicated. And so it's like how to take care of your body. It's like circadian health. No blue lights an hour before bed. Hydration. Drink proper water, get enough electrolytes. Eat proper food. Try to not eat stuff that comes in plastic or metal. pretty easy, straightforward. And exercise daily, right? And that doesn't mean you need to go super hard every day, although I'm a pretty big fan of that, especially for men. Different for women. Women have, the weeks are different, the days are different, every day's different. But men is kind of like just get up and exercise really hard every day. And then taking care of your mind is quite similar as well. I've become quite passionate about this, especially when it comes to men, for dopamine and testosterone regulation. I'm sure you know dopamine is at an all-time low historically, and it really takes a large impact. If your physical and mental pillar are not sound, then neither will be your connection to money, your connection to others, and certainly not your connection to what I call God. You can call it spirit, universe, whatever. And so just super quickly here, there's something called an HPA axis. It's the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. And it's basically your metric for regulation. And two parts of your brain, one part is largely your body, the adrenals. If you're not taking care of your body, your adrenal window is very short. And what it means is you're quick to snap. It's like the classic, you're dysregulated. You're angry, you're yelling, you're sad, you're dysregulated. But one thing that can happen, especially with men, this has actually happened with me, and now I'm taking my own medicine right now. I'm in the middle of my own protocols, is if the hypothalamus is dysregulated, then you can be like grounded, but your mind is like, ah. And so you think that you're the one that's regulated. Like this, I find this all the time with my male clients. It's like they think they're regulated because they're calm and she's yelling or whatever, but the mind is like, ah. And so how do you fix the hypothalamus dysregulation, which I believe most men actually have right now, is you do dopamine and testosterone hygiene, I guess would be the best way to call it. So I don't know if I went off the rails a little bit there, but I'm very passionate about the physical and mental.
Yeah. Can you dive a little bit more into the testosterone? Because I do know that for men, it can be very low, especially like in your late 30s, 40s, 50s, and a little bit above. And I know that everybody wants like a quick solution. So I know that some men do shots and they're injecting that. But is there a way to naturally boost that based on what you're talking about?
Yeah. Don't do that. Don't put needles in your arms for that. Okay. Something super important for men to know.
But don't put needles in your body for other things either. Let's just put that disclaimer out there.
Yep. Don't put needles in your body. There you go. Pretty straightforward. Okay. Again, simple, not easy. 90% of testosterone is generated in deep sleep. Okay. So step one, 90% in deep sleep. Okay. What is deep sleep? Deep sleep is what they call stage 3 sleep, REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. You go into a delta brainwave state. They call it rapid eye movement because your eyes start moving. It's a bit creepy. What else happens in deep sleep is your brain actually paralyzes your entire body except your vital organs, so it can detox and repair. Now, here's how to get deep sleep, and this is where it's difficult, especially for us in the Western world. The ideal hours for deep sleep are between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. It takes roughly 3.5 hours to get to stage 3 sleep. Otherwise, you're in stage 2 or stage 1, which means you need to go to bed by 10 or 11. And then it means you can't eat food. They say an hour. I think 2 hours is better. Let's call it 90 minutes. So no food 90 minutes before bed, because you won't get into deep sleep because all the blood's going into your body to support digestion. And no blue light an hour before bed. So this means you're done eating at 8, you're done your phone at 9, and then you're in bed by 10 to 11. And then that allows for 3 to 4 hours before you enter deep sleep. And then you will generate 90% of your testosterone. That's a really good one.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Yeah, that'd be the number. That'd be the number.
Were you
And
gonna
then
were
you
you
got
gonna add?
exercise till it hurts every day. I got to throw that in there.
Yeah.
Exercise till it hurts. If you're a dude, every day, exercise till it hurts.
Yeah, my husband just started working out again. He used to be, when we first got together, he would work out so hard, like he was so rigid, and like I would want to go to dinner and he'd be like, I have to work out. And then obviously life happens and other things
Mhm.
happen and stuff like that. So he just started working out again. So, but we definitely walk every morning. We try to go to the hill twice a week as well. We have this hill where, you know, you get the leg burning and stuff like that. So, um, what are some other tips or resources or things that you would suggest to anyone that's wanting to boost their mental and spiritual health to where they are able to be productive, happy, and be able to, make the most of every single day for themselves and for other people?
Okay. Excellent question. Okay, well, you hit the money on the head. I guess you said happiness, because I think there's a real interesting like being able to like hear God and then being like physically strong and regulated and happiness. They're kind of all in the same circle. And right, technically there's only four things that make you happy, right? It's dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. Those are the four things that make you happy. I'm going to go back to the same line that I was talking about before when it comes to dopamine. People think that dopamine is like, they get dopamine when they achieve the task, right? So I want to get 10 sales this week. And once I get the 10th sale, I get this big flood of dopamine. That's not actually the case. If I set my goal, I want to get 10 sales this week. I want to do 200 push-ups this week. I want to blah, blah, blah. Whatever you set your goal at, every step you take towards that goal, you get dopamine. So dopamine is actually your motivation. It's not your achievement. And it makes you happy. Having purpose and then taking steps towards that purpose make you happy. And what's something that's really interesting is the larger the goal, the more, it's basically the proportionate amount of dopamine gets released for each step that you take. So if you have a really large goal and you take a small step, you're going to get more dopamine. Dopamine is for motivation. Dopamine is for happiness. Dopamine facilitates a bunch of excellent things, including testosterone. And one way that you can really help with your regulation for the day, your testosterone development, and certainly for your dopamine development, is the cold plunge. And I'm always chuckling when I do it because I've been doing it for years. Literally 100% of the time I don't want to, and 100% of the time I'm glad I did. Like every single time. Literally, I've done it so many times now that I just hang on to that and it helps me get through it. Cold water can boost dopamine production by 250%. It's got just so much benefits to it. So to just answer that question, like have goals, work towards them, and facilitate your dopamine production, because we are so dopamine cooked right now and we're scrolling. If you're caught in the scroll hole, your dopamine is depleted. Avoid it. Avoid the scroll hole. You're just depleting your dopamine and you have no motivation for real life skills.
Right. So when we're talking about these real life skills and a lot of people scrolling, maybe people are working out, maybe they don't have access to the cold plunge, what is something they can do for themselves that is, I know that we mentioned simple, but sometimes it's not that simple for people, especially because of the excuses. So when it comes to committing to doing something on a daily basis that's going to boost all the things that you're talking about, if they keep coming up with excuses, what would be your advice, or how would you encourage them to put the excuses to the side or not make the excuses?
Okay, so this is why I said it's simple but not easy. Because
Sure.
that excuses voice will show up. Because our brain is wired for comfort. Our brain is made to not burn excess calories. And so cold water burns calories. Exercise burns calories. Intense fights with partners, cortisol burns calories. And so my advice is, I mean, like with my clients, I say like Nike, it's like, just do it. And I think here, I've got the perfect advice is, anything is infinitely better than nothing. And so if you don't have access to the cold plunge, you do have access to the cold shower. 30 seconds is better than no seconds. 10 push-ups is better than 0 push-ups. Walking for 2 minutes is way better than walking for 0 minutes. And this is something that I know a lot of people that get really stuck into, is it's this like illusion of efficiency and effectiveness, which ends up leading to action paralysis, perfectionism. And so there's a difference between discipline and motivation. Motivation is fleeting. That first day of school, you got your bag, got your pen, got your book, taking good notes, right? Because of novelty. Humans love novelty. Oh yeah, new class. 4 weeks in, you're falling asleep in your chair, you're not caring because the motivation has worn off. So just know there's a difference between discipline and motivation. Just know that not wanting to do it is everybody. And anything is better than nothing. Anything is better than nothing.
It kind of reminds me of the Mini Habits book. Have
Tiny
you read
Habits,
that book?
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent book.
So if you're listening, the book is called Mini Habits. I think it's Stephen Geis maybe is the author of that book. I may have the authors wrong.
Called Tiny
but that's
Habits.
a great Tiny Habits. Okay, I have a book. I think it's called Mini Habits. But
Oh, really?
regardless, it helps with just getting going as well and just starting somewhere, and then eventually you'll be up to the 10, the 15, the 20, whether it's push-ups, minutes, at the gym, things like that, or minutes walking. So the most important thing is just to get started. And the situation doesn't have to be ideal. Just like the cold plunge. Like if you don't have a cold plunge, take a cold shower. Like obviously, whether it's starting or ending, which is super hard. We have a sauna. So I typically will jump in the sauna for about 30, 40 minutes. And then that makes getting in the cold plunge or the cold shower much easier.
Totally.
But it's still really hard, especially when it's cold, which I'm in Florida. So people are probably thinking it does not get cold in Florida, but it definitely does. So awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing all that about ourselves. I think most importantly, it's, we have the power to be happy. We have the power to do anything, but at the end of the day, it has to come from within and we have to do it for ourselves, not for other people. And I think that's a super important point. So let's talk about spouses and how your relationship thrives and how that boosts you and it serves you as well. And how do you serve your spouse? You mentioned Lily is your number one support system. So let's talk a little bit about your relationship and how that helps you.
Wow. Well, how that helps me. I'm just thinking like the first thing that kind of came to my mind was like strength in numbers, It's like when you're not in a relationship, there's like a big list of things that are easier because you don't have to care about anybody else, but then you have to do everything, And so if you have it's, I was supposed to say balanced, but it's never balanced. It's not 50-50. This week it's 80-20, right? Like I'm bearing the load this week and the next week it's 30-70 and just like having that understanding of that dance. I would say the number one way that it supports me is relationships will trigger your deepest traumas. And that allows you to see them so they're not in the shadows anymore. It allows you to put the spotlight on them and then grow and become more of who you are. Become more of who you are. So that would be the biggest one for me. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why that happens. But the biggest one is like we go into the flames and then we communicate about the flames in a very one thing I put on my thing there is having a good understanding of the difference between men and women. Our brains are physiologically different. We think differently. The pathways are different. And then bringing both of those to the conversation. And so she knows how my brain is thinking, and then she knows how her brain is thinking. And I know that the same thing as well. And then we kind of like analyze and also feel the both sides of the growing lesson that we're in the middle of.
How long have you and Lily been married?
Lily and I have been together we're actually not married yet. We've been together for well, we were friends for about 4 years, and now we've been a partnership for over a year now. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in its beginning stages.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are some things that you do for Lily so that she knows that you love her, you value her, you appreciate her, and that you are grateful to have her part of your life? So share with us some ways that you're kind of boosting that relationship and her.
Well, first and foremost, it's knowing that words of affirmation is way high up on her list. And so I'm like, thank you so much for doing the dishes every single day, right? Thank you so much for cooking this excellent meal every single day. Thank you so much for turning the house into a home, right? It's not just like a gym, it's like, it's actually beautiful and an excellent environment to be in. And so knowing that the words of affirmation essentially is somebody that wants a lot of reassurance, probably because they didn't get a lot of reassurance growing up, even though they probably did an excellent job. So knowing the love language and knowing that it's not mine, and totally catching myself doing acts of service for her, and like really catching myself in that, like a lot of the times, we'll get into a little bit of a thing, and happens, and I'll be like, yeah, but I did this and I did that, and I did this and I did that. And as I'm saying it, I'll be like, oh, like, it's just not our love language that I'm outside working on the lawn, or I'm, building this thing, or setting up the lights, or whatever it is. So knowing the love language, huge one. And then, and then the other aspect is the like, one of the ways that I show my love to Lily is by doing, I guess, what you would call the dirty jobs. Right? It's probably a better way. Like, she doesn't need to go out and dig in the mud, or, take the garbage out, or like the dirty jobs, right? She can do the clean jobs. And so
Which we're really grateful for.
Right. And then having that communication, right? Having that communication. I think Jordan Peterson had kind of laid this out after working with people for many, many years. And he kind of has this bit of a formula, which is that you want to have at least, I want to be clear, at least, underlined, highlighted, bold, at least 1 3-hour, at least, date a week. Which is where, like, we're not talking about the kids, we're not talking about the chores, we're not talking about the we go dancing, we have a meal, we're not on our phones, we're not talking about business, none of that. Minimum 3 hours, right? And then one at least 2-hour meeting a week, which is business. How's it operating? Did you feel like you're giving too much? Do you feel like you're taking too much? How's the money? How, like, are we doing the taxes? Is the and having those in 2 completely separate containers. And so Lily and I both work online. We're both coaches, and we're both building our own things. And so having that, I would say having separating those 2 things was really helpful for me to love her, because I'd be quick to bring in the finances onto date night. I'd be quick to do those things because I'm a man.
Yes.
And then,
my husband does
and so
that.
Super important. Super important. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so when you're working with parents, and obviously you're talking about the reconnection and having those really important conversations, how are they creating boundaries to where they're able to go do the 3-hour date? They're able to go and have that conversation. Because I'm around a lot of parents, I am an aunt, I am always around different families as well, because a lot of my friends have children. My husband and I decided not to have children. But it seems like there's not a lot of boundaries. And it seems like the kids rule the household. The kids have a lot of authority of the schedule. The kids have a lot of say-so in how the family runs the household every single day. So what are going to be some boundaries that you would encourage the parent/spouses to put into play so that they can get those 3 hours, or they have connection, or they have time for reconnection, and to really just be together? Talk to us about those boundaries and setting those, or creating that space.
Okay. Well, that is extremely difficult reality. Okay, when you have a 0, 1, 2-year-old, that baby, and I usually don't say should, but that baby should basically be attached to mom, like on mom's body. And so there's that. When you have the 0, 1, 2, it's like you might not have that. It might be It's going to be difficult. It's going to probably be the most difficult. Now, I'm just going to kind of say some big umbrella things, because this is very different for many different people, their financial situation and all these different things. So I'm just going to like kind of put an umbrella on this, which is, how do you set the boundary for it? Like, if you don't, you're going to divorce. That's why. That's how you set the boundary. You just sign up for that. It's like, if you're not doing it, like it's not going to work. Like I would, maybe it will work, right? But I wouldn't be gambling. I wouldn't be betting on that couple making it 20, 30, 40, 50 years, because they're not spending any of that personal time together, and because they're not spending any of that logistical time together. And eventually it's going to lead to trust issues and blah, 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 blah. So first off is just like knowing, like, reality doesn't care how busy you are with your kids. If you're not spending that time together, you're on a path that is not going to end up with you two staying together. That's tough. Now, how do you do it? Like, babysitter. Remember babysitters? They used to be a thing. It used to be a full thing. Pay a teenager $40 or $50 to watch your kids. And that date, it doesn't need to be a $300 date. It can be a free date in the park, a walk, a chat, so babysitters are great. Pawn the kids off on your sister for a couple hours, and then let her pawn her kids off of you. Like, develop these communities of support networks. So that's one. I would say, like, yeah, like, how daycare, if no daycare, friends or family, and then having the conversation with them, being like, hey, like, we need to do this, and so do you guys, and so let's make a strategy where Wednesday they're at Jenny's house, and Thursday they're at Matthew's house, so that we can stay together in the long term.
So I love this concept. I feel that a lot of times the kids are just so overscheduled with activities, or these conversations, and the structure isn't happening. There's a lot of structure to like execute all of the activities and the school, but they aren't budgeting this time. So how are they creating these conversations, having these conversations, and they can incorporate their children on like the benefits of it as well, as far as like the growth aspect of like becoming independent and getting connected with maybe an aunt or uncle or with their other friends. And I feel like there's a lot of other perspective as well. They're also getting mentorship. They're also getting to build relationships away from their parents, where I think a lot of times so many parents are afraid of maybe their kids hearing something they shouldn't hear, or maybe failing, or them having maybe a different relationship with them. And I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but if you have any advice to give these parents to where they can trust these other circles and these other people, I do totally think it'd be super beneficial.
Okay, multi-layered answer. I'm just going to quickly do a plug. One of the aspects of our free online community is for parents is like we want this to develop into almost like a WeWorks, BNI, like vetted, and then it's like Wednesdays, again, I'll just use you, Wednesday at Jenny's house, teens gather for music. What a perfect example. And so like Jenny's vetted, the teens will be vetted as well, and so you kind of like make these different things. And so one of the big aspects is turning this online into an in-person through the communities of parents themselves, so that they can connect with the like-minded parents, because sometimes brother and sister, dad and aunt don't see eye to eye. That's the first thing. So a little plug. Okay. For millennia, it wasn't like mom and dad over here in this house with their yard and their kids. It was like all of the moms and all of the dads were in groups, and there was clusters of kids just running around, and they had several male role models in their life, and they had several female role models in their life. And it wasn't just like them locked up in their I was like castle, just call it homes, locked up in their homes over here. It was way more communal. So this is how humanity has been for a really, really long time until quite recently. And then the third thing is, if they don't trust, it's like too bad, you know? It's like too bad. It's like there's going to be things that they disagree with. Trust, if you trust anything, trust your children to have discernment in their lives. And I know that that can be difficult, especially when like a couple of years ago you were like changing their diapers, but trust that they have an internal guide, an internal moral compass, and know that they are going to do things that as a parent you don't want to hear that they did, and then they went into the fire and flames and they learned a really tough lesson and they don't want to do it again. And maybe they got that advice from Uncle Jim, and then they went and they did it and it hurt them, and now they don't want to do it again. That's real life skills. Yeah.
Just so many lessons can be learned as well, just by being exposed to other people. You learn what you do want, what you don't want. And then I feel like too, if you go to another home, if you see maybe there's not organization, there's not a meal on the table, or there's disrespect, you're going to really be grateful for the home that you live in and for the parents you have and for your parents. And I think if you're not put into those other situations, you're not going to have a different perspective, or I don't know, just be grateful for the home that you do have. Or you realize maybe your home isn't that great and maybe you can make some adjustments, or I don't know. I just feel like there's just so much value in seeing how other people live and their perspectives and how they run their households as well. And I think sometimes kids may actually take ownership of their future and how they want to see things happening in their home, where they'll start leading that change, and that kind of stems some independency as well.
Yeah, well, 100%. And then just like one more thing on this is, it's like they probably like, so, okay, so mine is a perfect example, right? Is now that I've worked with so many adults and I'm working with kids, it's like I'm so grateful for the upbringing I had. And one of the things is, it was like dinner at the table every night. Well, I'd go over to my friend's house and no dinner at the table. We'll just go eat in there, play video games in there. And when I was growing up, I was like, that's so cool. That's so much better. Like, this is freedom, right? And now that I'm in my late 20s, 30s, I'm like, I'm so grateful that that existed. And so the gratitude might not come until you're 60. You know, like so
100%. I think that's super fun. We gathered at the table every night. Didn't matter what time of night it was, but we sat together every single night. We talked about our days. We had a meal together. And I think that's just one simple thing, but it's really complicated because, once again, all of these kids are so overscheduled. The parents are trying to do this and trying to do that. So that's what I really loved about COVID. Is COVID really brought everybody back home, and everybody was spending time together, and they were sitting around the table together. They were going for walks together, and a lot of things stopped where people were able to see the value of the people right in front of them, their family, and build those relationships. There obviously was a lot of other things that were negative, but I do think that people got to understand the quality of life and what they wanted to be doing and how they wanted to be spending their time and with who. And I saw a lot of families like kind of reconnect in the bond, and they actually set boundaries when things started getting scheduled again and started opening back up. They kept a lot of those same structures that they put in, or like, I don't want to say task, like to have dinner together every night. It's not a task. It's actually an opportunity for connection and love and for sharing and for gratitude. So I know that dinner at the table was a huge one for us. So, okay, so let's move over to friends and family. And I know that we talked about that community and, like, obviously with the parents building the trust with friends and family and, you know, sharing kids and all of that stuff. But let's talk about the community and the tribe around you. And let's talk a little bit about the root chakra, the myself, my foundation, my muscles, my money, that kind of mentality and capacity as well, and creating the life that you want.
Yeah, well, you know, there's always there's like, I'm really glad that that's how I chose this, because it's like you start with yourself, and then you go to your family, and then you go to your community, right? And I am definitely a believer of show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your future. Show me the 5 people you talk to the most, I'll show you the future. If you're in a group of 5 millionaires, you're soon to be the 6th. If you're in a group of 5 obese video game players, you're soon to be the sixth. And there's like science backing this with things that are called mirror neurons or empathy neurons. But in terms of like stroking, building your employees or your team members or your friends, for me personally, they have to be what I call a contender. You have to be willing to contend, because I'm constantly pursuing my own development, health across financial, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And I have blind spots. And I need people to, number one, I'm going to tell you your blind spots. And number two, I need you to tell me mine. And so I am so adamant that you have to be in an environment that accepts your boundaries. I'm a big proponent that you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And so if you're around 5 millionaires, you're soon to be the 6th. If you're around 5 obese video game players, you're soon to be the 6th. And so I do take the connection with my friends and employees and team members quite seriously. And I always, for me personally, because I'm a strong, whatever, A-type, whatever person, I need to be around what I call contenders. And so those are people that have boundaries and hold them, and then also respect my boundaries. So because I take my personal development very seriously. I take my financial, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual development very personally. I have blind spots. And so I need people that aren't afraid to point out my blind spots. And then I need people that when I point out their blind spots, they don't get all emotional and dysregulated and snappy on me. So I call it a profit project. I work with a multi-level market, and I think the product's excellent. And I think the business money-making opportunity is excellent. And if I go to my friend and I'm like, hey, here's a product that's going to make you healthy and you can make a bunch of money. And their response is anything but thanks for showing me. Right? Maybe no, but thanks for showing me. Right? If it's a pyramid scheme or you're just trying to blah, 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 that's a filter for me. Because I know that you're like, that's just a filter for me personally. And so I think that we have to be very compassionate and empathetic with people's knowing their history so that you can see them for who they are, and knowing that there's certain things that, oh, like this person just did that. I don't like that, but I can see the pathway that they've walked and why they did that. And that way I can forgive them because that's who they are. And then being able to have a discussion around it. And also I've really held on to recently that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And not being upset when it's just a reason or a season, just being like, instead of like, because usually when it's a reason or a season, there's some sort of fallout that happens, right? And instead of looking at that fallout and what they did or this and that, looking at the reason, looking at the season and being like, wow, like that person was actually instrumental in this development process and in showing me shadows that I didn't even know. We got into a fight. I said some crazy things. I thought I had moved on from that. Clearly I haven't. I'm really grateful for that person being the instrument to show me those types of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're talking about being a contender, are these people aligning with where you want to go, your core values? How are you assessing these people and really identifying if they're really a contender?
Well, excellent question. The answer is yes to both. And then there's like categories. So I've got, I guess you could say, some foundational moral principles that if we're not aligned to, that if we're not aligned, we're not aligned. And one of my really good friends, his name is Brad. He uses the word resonance, where it's not that I'm right and you're wrong. We're just not in resonance. That's fine. So I have some foundational things personally, which largely revolve around health and spirituality and science. Like my close people have to have some depth of knowledge and embodiment for personal health and spiritual development, whatever that means, right? Now, once that's checked off, I totally have some people that it's like, we're financial pillar friends. I got some people, we're physical pillar friends, and I got some people, we're mental pillar friends. Like we just talk about psychology. It's amazing. And some, I would say most kind of go through all of them. And we talk about spirituality and we talk about science and we talk about business. And those are probably the people that are closer to me. But there are definitely some people where it's like, I don't talk about physicality with that person. I've tried. Maybe it rubbed them the wrong way a little bit, but they're still in integrity. They just said, I'm not interested. And so we're kind of recognizing that there's different lanes that different people slot into that do really fill your cup. Yeah. Looking through the lens of the 5 pillars has just helped me immensely.
Yeah. And I feel like as we age, if we're very much focused on our personal development, we are going to be growing at a different rate than maybe some of our friends. And I know that I've had to find different circles of people that are more aligned with me as well. And I think sometimes we want to keep like our high school or college friends because we've always been friends. Like, why wouldn't we be friends? Then we have this expectation of them. They have this expectation of us. And at the end of the day, like we're growing and changing at a different rate than some of them. And there becomes the jealousy, there becomes resentment. And, I'm a CEO, so I'm looking to hang out with other CEOs. And I have my friends that I just want to hang out with and just like get coffee, go to the beach, have drinks with as well. But I'm not having those conversations of business. I was trying to, in my 20s and 30s, have conversations with non-business people about business. And it was just like, it just didn't work out. So definitely aligning with people that are like-minded and finding the circles out with a lot of CEOs. And I want to be the best CEO. I want to increase my income. I'm constantly growing, but I'm also dreaming and wanting to achieve. And I want to have this amazing life. And that amazing life doesn't mean I have the most money. It just means that I get to wake up every day, be content with where I am and who I am, get to travel, get to design my day. I'm the architect of my life. I'm writing my story. Somebody else is not writing it. And so, but a lot of that mentality came through a lot of hardships, a lot of growth, and connecting with the right people that are aligned. And sometimes it's hard for people because I think that sometimes maybe they don't feel like they need, or not that they need, that they are able to be in that circle, or they have the confidence to be in that circle. They're lacking that as well. And so if you are, and I want to encourage everyone just to go get in the rooms of the people that are doing what you want to do, whether you believe you should be in there or not, most likely you belong in that group.
Yeah.
So when you think about like everything we've talked about today and your philosophy and the people that you're working with, if there was something that you could share with a parent or a spouse or a CEO that's listening today, what would be their advice that you would give them based on the work that you do?
Let's see. I'm just waiting for my camera to come back online here before I say this. Okay, so the advice that I would give would probably be, it's not complicated. It's just difficult. It's simple. It's not easy. And that discipline is the highest form of self-love. And the amount that you love yourself is directly proportional to the amount of love that you've got to give. Self-discipline is the highest form of self-love because you're loving yourself tomorrow. You're doing something you don't want to do today, so it benefits you tomorrow. And so you're expanding. We will talk about pouring from an empty cup. My cup is filled. But when you do this self-discipline practices, you're expanding your cup on how much love you've got to give. And that tiny habits work really, really well. Yeah. That would be the main piece of advice that I would give for the general population.
I love that. So a few years ago, my word for the year was discipline. And that is so hard, especially when it comes to like purchasing or what you're eating, or, are you going to work out? Are you going to lay in bed? Are you going to go have this drink? Or are you going to have a cocktail versus water? Like what's serving yourself for tomorrow? And I would say that discipline was super, super hard, but I will say that it was super powerful as well. I was able to accomplish so many things in that year. Like I always do a vision, and then I do like the post, like the recap board as well. And what I was able to accomplish based on that discipline really helps me hit milestones. And I just completely transformed, and I'm really proud of it. But discipline is super hard for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't go it alone, right?
Yeah,
You said get
sure.
around these communities of people. It's like get around the like-minded people that got the same goals as you. Accountability is the glue that holds commitment to results. Accountability is the glue that holds commitment to results. And so get in groups of people that want to go to the same place that you want to go to, and don't feel guilty that you're leaving your loved ones behind. Don't feel guilty that you're leaving your loved ones behind. I'm writing this book. I'm going to write this book. I'm taking all the spark notes right now. It's called Curse of the Talented. It references some scripture that talks about the talents parable. The talent's a really good read. And this is one of the main ones, is that you wake up, you start to succeed, and your loved ones don't. And that can be really, 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 really tough because there's guilt and shame. And then you start getting white knight syndrome and trying to pull them along with you. And then that just creates this resentment and all these types of things. Grow relentlessly and find people that are on the same path as you. If you shine bright enough, then all these people that you want to work on physical health, you want to work on financial freedom, if you shine bright enough, some of them will see it.
One of my coaches, he had always indicated that someone got really upset with him because he left them. And he was like, I didn't leave you. You just didn't come with me. And so I think that's super powerful when talking with people, because that's happened with friends, that's happened within my company. And we just had some turnover and some people that weren't aligned with the future of the company. And unfortunately, we had to let them go. And just, in business that does happen, and personally as well. So anyways, well, Matt, we are at our time. I really enjoyed our conversation today. I felt like you added a lot of value, gave a lot of perspective, and you gave us all something to think about and something to work towards, which I think is super powerful. So I want to say thank you for that. If our listeners want to connect with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Best way to get a hold of me is through Instagram. So it's Matthew Finlin. Matthew Finlin. That's the best way. And check out our website. It's called www.reallifeskillsacademy.com. Those would be the best ways.
Well, Matthew, thank you so much again for your time. For all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Once again, go to Matt's Instagram. There's going to be a lot of tools, resources. He has a lot of guides. He has a lot of resources available on his website for parents and teams that are really wanting to enhance their life skills and change their future. And once again, I always ask this at the end of every single podcast. If you know 5 people that could benefit from today's podcast, please send it to them. So much value was shared today that will encourage other people in your life to take ownership of their life, their choices, and their future. So thank you for tuning in and have a great day.